The Reds swept the White Sox, and Nick Lodolo has entered the Staff Ace chat group. We are breaking down a fantastic weekend of baseball in the Windy City. We got that on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds.
Jeff. You know, I love the intro. We've used it for a long time. It's fantastic. But you know, I'm a little bit ready for something new.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds. What's up? I'm Jeff. He's Steve. We are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans that have turned an addiction to this team into information for you. Want to thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day, all throughout the season, all throughout the offseason, all throughout everything. Locked On Reds is here for you. And on today's show, we are here for this sweep. We are here for the performance that the Reds put on in the south side of Chicago, and we are here for just how important that series sweep is to this season. We're also going to look at later on in the show why Tyler Stephenson is breaking out. There's a specific reason as to why. We'll tell you that later on. But Steve, we are going to start first and foremost with the biggest thing of the weekend, and that was the pitching and who had the best performance. Before we get to all of that, though, wanted to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay guarantee fit only, available to U.S. customers. All right, Steve, I'll tell you what's only available to Reds fans, and that is the wonderfulness that is this starting rotation and what it could be, because we saw what this rotation can be with three absolutely fantastic performances as the Reds sweep the White Sox. We're going to get into all of the wonderful performances in this series where the Reds outscored the White Sox 27-5 at Guaranteed Rate Field, a place that they had only won one game coming into this series. It was absolutely fantastic to see all these performances, but there were three great starting pitcher performances that set them up for all these wins.
And I want to start with the wet blanket crowd, because I know they're already typing. Before you even finish talking, they're already typing about how it was just the White Sox. I do not care. You have to go up against teams like this. And this Cincinnati Reds team in the past always played to the level of its competition. If they were playing the Dodgers, they would play up and just barely miss out. We saw it in the Atlanta series last year where they lost every single game by a run. This was a Reds team that delivered where it was supposed to deliver. And not only did it meet our expectations, it exceeded our expectations, and you're absolutely right. That started with the starting pitching that was delivered over the course of this 3-game series.
And to that crowd, I want to say this. The Reds used to be, it's just the Reds. So I'm savoring every single bit of this, and I absolutely love how this weekend went. And I do want to know from the comment section, let me know, who do you think had the best week or the best starting pitcher performance of the weekend? Was it Andrew Abbott? Was it Nick Lodolo? Or was it Graham Ashcraft? Because all three of these were bangers, man. We start off with the first one, guy on Friday. Andrew Abbott goes 7 innings. First time, what was it they said, since August of last year, I believe is what it was, that a Reds starting pitcher went 7 innings. He allowed 1 earned run. He allowed 4 total hits, no walks, and 3 strikeouts. He was fantastic. It was a good defensive night as well, but he was very efficient, which allowed him to go that 7.
You know, for me, and we'll get into these other performances here through the course of this segment, Jeff, but for me, Andrew Abbott, I feel like probably had the best of the 3 performances. And I know it wasn't flashy like Lodolo's return with the 10 strikeouts, but Andrew Abbott went out there. He threw 7 innings, complete innings. He only allowed 1 run. And while he didn't strike out anybody, the number that you said that should register with everybody is through 7. He did not walk anybody. He limited the exposure of the bullpen. He kept the White Sox bats at bay. He did everything that was asked of him, and he stretched out that innings total within a game. He was pitch efficient. He did all of the things that you're looking for. And I know that the excitement level was for Lodolo and Lodolo coming back and to see how he was going to look from injury. And then he shows up and is amazing. But for me, that steady, consistent performance that you want to see each and every time that Andrew Abbott brought, the Andrew Abbott of those first 10 starts last year, that's the guy we've been wanting to see. And that guy showed up in Chicago, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, he had a lot of great things to say after the game as to, why this start was so good. And this is what he had to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, defense playing great behind me, making plays, was able to get ahead of guys, was able to get in, was able to execute off speed. Just probably the best collective effort in a game I've had this year. I'm a big carry guy, so I know how I pitch normally, and today my fastball was acting like I normally am used to it. I was just able to get them in counts and put it where I needed to when I needed it.
His fastball was good, but his changeup was the difference maker. I mean, we saw in his first couple of starts, it felt like he just had the fastball and he just had the breaker. And really the breaker for him is the third pitch. The breaker is not the out pitch that he has. His out pitch is his changeup. So it was great to see him have that. And to your point about how impressive a performance he had, Ellie would like to add this.
I'm not impressed. I know he can do that. He always is like that.
And just to clarify, he said, and I tried to bump that audio up as much as I could, but to clarify, he said, I'm not impressed. I know he can do that every day. I love that. That's fantastic.
It's amazing. And listen, so not to be outdone, Andrew Abbott comes out in the first game of this series, throws 7, allows just 1 run, does everything that's asked of him, and then we get back Nick Lodolo against the White Sox. That's who he pitched against his last game of last year. You get Nick Lodolo back, and a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I'm not sure that there are any unanswered questions after 5 2/3, 0 earned runs allowed, just 1 hit. I was just getting ready to text you. Are they going to let him keep going until he gives up a hit? 1 hit allowed, 1 walk. And here's the magic number, Jeffrey. 10. Yes, 10 strikeouts from Nick Lodolo.
He was on fire. He was my performance of the weekend without a doubt, because that was 2022 Nick Lodolo. That back foot breaker was working, man. I want to say his last strike, it was either his second to last or his last strikeout. He got a strikeout on the back foot breaker that actually hit the guy's back foot after he swung through it. And I love those. And they showed a couple of highlights of that. And interestingly enough, one of the guys he got in 2022 was Josh Harrison. But it was interesting to see those highlights mixed in with this performance, because he had everything working. He would locate the fastball. He would get them to be like, all right, there's the fastball. And then he would perfectly tunnel the breaker. You get the fastball going at the up and away, and then you get the curveball starting up and away, and then it breaks low and inside on the guy. And by the time he swung, the ball's hitting him in the shoe. And he has no idea why on earth that's the case, because that breaker was working so crisply. And all of his stuff, he was so efficient with everything that he did. That stat line, 10 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 hit, 2 total base runners, period. I think he did hit a guy. I forgot to look and see what the hit batsmen were on that one. But even still, that was a fantastic outing for me. And he enters himself immediately, because of what he did in 2022 and how good he looked in that start, enters himself immediately into the ace conversation.
And the other piece of this is too, obviously a day had already passed. We've been waiting to hear, was there anything negative from him pitching at the big league level?
Nothing.
Going ramped up? Nothing. Crickets. We didn't hear anything about any setbacks. We didn't hear anything about any problems. I think Nick Lodolo is back and ready to be a bulldog in this rotation. I'm excited. I'm excited to have him back. That back foot breaker. I missed it. The first couple that he threw when I was watching, I was like, God, that is just sexy, Jeff. That is baseball sexy right there.
because he releases it from his left hand. So when you're watching it on television, it goes from one corner of the screen to another. There's just something that is so satisfying about watching that. And you mentioned the word bulldog, so not to be outdone, Graham Ashcraft comes out on Sunday and has himself a stellar start as well. He did pitch around a couple of innings where there were guys on base and there were, opportunities for the White Sox to at least compete in this game. But he goes 5 2/3, just like Nick Lodolo, allows 1 earned run. He only had 5 hits allowed to 2 walks, and he still had 8 strikeouts. And he and Sam LeCure had a chorus afterward of saying that wasn't his best stuff. That wasn't the best Graham Ashcraft, but he sure looked a hell of a lot better than when he pitched against the Brewers.
And I think that's important to bear in mind, because you could watch that start out of Ashcraft and see that he was working. And if a struggling, working hard Ashcraft, if that's the result, 5 2/3, 1 earned run, 2 walks only with 8 strikeouts, that's encouraging. One of the things that you see in an evolution of a pitcher is first they're throwers, then they're pitchers, then they learn how to face struggles, and they learn how to get guys out when they don't have their best stuff. That was the Graham Ashcraft we saw in his start in Chicago, and I'm excited about it.
I'm fighting it. Nope. I'm not fighting anymore. He pitched his Ashcraft off. All right, take us away.
All right. Well, on that note, if he pitched his Ashcraft off, coming up, we're going to dig into what the key takeaways from this sweep of the Chicago White Sox are. I know the temptation is going to be to say it's just the White Sox, they're horrible, but we're going to tell you about a whole lot of good that we saw during the course of that series. That's coming up right after this. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Everyone, I need you all to listen up for this huge announcement. I've been tracking the leaderboards every day, keeping my eye on the scores, putting all my heart into it, and I'm super pumped to announce that I'm finally on top. That's right. Obviously, I'm talking about that mobile game, Monopoly Go. It's the hit mobile game, Monopoly Go. You've probably heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great mobile twist on the classic Monopoly. You can play anywhere, anytime. You explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from Las Vegas to Camelot to the moon, all while raking in a huge fortune. Charge rent on iconic properties just like classic Monopoly. You can charge your friends rent on your properties, or you can go after their Monopoly money by pulling bank heists and taking wrecking balls to their landmarks. But my favorite part is the leaderboards, where you can see who's a Monopoly tycoon and who's gone bankrupt. So go get yourself on the charts. Download Monopoly Go now. Free on the App Store and on Google Play.
Pitched his Ashcraft off. I hope Cincy Shirts is listening. Listen, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN with your TV on all day? Do you have to turn down the volume because of all the shouting? Well, make the switch to Locked On Sports today. A free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all of the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news you've been longing for. It's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On the next Locked On Reds podcast, we will be digging into Frankie Montas. Will Montas keep the momentum rolling? We'll break down his performance on the next episode of Locked On Reds. All right, Jeff. The pitching was great, but there are a lot more reasons to be excited about sweeping the Chicago White Sox. Get out of here with it was what was supposed to happen. Get out of here with it was just the White Sox. Don't get excited. There are a lot of things that were playing out on the field over this 3-game series that caught my attention, that caught your attention, and should be catching everybody's attention because I think there's a breakout coming.
Yeah, the big picture for me and the whole weekend, I kept thinking this, is that this was something that the Reds, 2021, 2020, years where they're supposed to be good. These are the series where they take 2 out of 3. And these are the series where we're always just like, okay, that's what they were supposed to do, right? That's fine. They won the series. They got out of there with a series win on the road. We try to like turn the angle and just be like, well, this is the reason why winning 2 out of 3 is fine. Sweeping them, you don't have to make any excuses. And they didn't. And they made no excuses about their performance. When they had a chance in every single game to step on the throat of the White Sox, they did. And they made sure that if they had chances to add on, they added on. If they had chances to make a good play instead of just making an easy play, they went there. There were so many top 10 highlights, so many web gems. I don't even know if web gems still a thing, but there's so many web gems by the Reds in this series. Something that we haven't seen to this point. We've seen opposite of web gems. We've seen web breakers, or I don't know. I can't come up with a thing there. But the point is, they had a thing that they were supposed to go out and do. And while you don't play baseball on paper, they lived up to what the paper said they should be doing.
Yeah, and there were a lot of things in this series, Jeff, where you can start to see that guys are beginning to right the ship. Let's start with Christian Encarnacion-Strand. We've been worried about him. In fact, you and I did a whole episode talking about that it was time to move him down in the order along with Jeimer Candelario. Now, David Bell has listened to us on 2 of our 3 points from that episode. I want to point out Jeimer's moved down and Spencer Steer has been batting cleanup. So You're welcome, David. But CES is still sitting there in the 3-hole. And we've been waiting for him to do something. We've been waiting for him to break out. And finally, he got a hold of a no-doubter. And I am really hoping that that translates into the slump buster that he needed heading into the Seattle Mariners series out on the West Coast, because this offense works its best when CES is a threat in the 3-hole, setting things up for the cleanup hitter and beyond.
Yeah, and he was asked about the slow start after Sunday's game, and this is what he had to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a small sample. I haven't even got 100 at-bats yet. Yeah, it's the slowest I've ever started, but it's a long season, so we'll see how it goes.
Was that a podcaster making an excuse for a player? Or was that a player saying the God's honest truth? Small sample size, chill out on some of these guys.
Are you gonna spell relax right now? Is that the next thing you're gonna do?
Yeah, I'm close to it. But his home run was crushed so much. And honestly, he's been coming up with some nice hits in this series. It wasn't just the home run that he hit. And it's the kind of stuff that the Reds see in him. It's the kind of stuff that we saw in him preseason, to where all of us, if we didn't pick Christian Encarnacion-Strand to be the best hitter on this team, he was like 1B when it came to who we were picking to be the best hitter on this team, because we know that it's there. He can do damage with the bat, and it's just going to get better from here. Like, everybody goes through slumps, and some guys are slow starters. I mean, how many years did you talk to somebody about Joey Votto and then be like, I don't know, man, is he going to be okay? Guy's going to be in the Hall of Fame in 5 years, or, 5 years from whenever he retires. So he obviously was okay. And I'm not saying CES is a Hall of Famer, but I'm saying that he is going to be okay.
All right, the next guy I want to talk about, Jeff, is I want to talk about Elly De La Cruz for just a minute. Obviously, an 0 for 5 day is not something to celebrate. And there may be some of those guys that have been waiting out there for Elly to fall off a little bit. There seems to be a little corner of people that follow this team that are almost rooting for him to fall apart again. And so he had an 0 for 5 day. I want to put that in perspective. So on the season, that now has him at 286, 355, 607. I will take those numbers. But even with that 0 for 5 day yesterday, In his last 7 games, Jeff, that's 25 at bats, 320, 414, 840. Even with the 0 for 5 to end the series in Chicago, Elly is playing at an elevated level. I expect him to continue to play at an elevated level, and the 0 for 5 does not bother me. Stuff like that happens in Major League Baseball.
So would you say he's elevated?
Sure, you're on a roll today. I don't know what.
I love this. That was
what did Hannah put in your?
Woo!
What did Hannah put in your Cheerios? What is going on over there today?
But I mean, the great thing about that, and I know, we end the streak, and that was kind of something fun to talk about. He'd been on base in every single game this year. That is the key for me. Like, if the batting average drops, and we'll probably see the batting average closer to 250 for the year, maybe 260. As long as we still see like a 360, 370 on base, he is going to be ridiculously valuable to this team. He's going to be a huge damage guy. And I keep saying the word damage. Like, CES does damage with the bat. Elly loves to do damage with his legs. And when he's on base, that's when he does his best work. And as long as he's getting it on base, I mean, people keep comparing him to different players for different reasons, but I keep thinking of, man, this is what we kind of thought, minus the power, but the speed is what we thought we were getting with Billy Hamilton. It's just Billy Hamilton never got on base to show us. Elly's getting on base to show us, and man, is it fun.
Speaking of fun things, Jeff, we spent a great deal of time in spring training leading into this season voicing our concerns about fly balls hit to the outfield with what the Reds were going to have to do with this defense. In fact, you and I spent quite a bit of time hoping that everybody became ground ball pitchers. Yeah. Lo and behold, these outfielders can play defense. We saw tremendous catch after tremendous catch. Bally Sports put together a great highlight reel with some of the catches over the last week to 10 days. These guys are out there flashing the leather.
Yeah, you can say, well, the pitching, they're facing the White Sox. You can say, well, the hitting, they're facing the White Sox. There's nothing about fielding that gives a darn about who hit the ball. It's where the ball is in the field. And there were multiple times where Will Benson and Stuart Fairchild make an amazing diving grab, or, even Spencer Steer got in on the diving grab action. There were so many awesome, and Bubba Thompson as well, sliding up against the wall, saving a warning track double. There were so many awesome plays by this Reds outfield that I'm not ready to say that, everything is fine and they're going to be an okay outfield for the rest of the year. But to know that they have this in them is a lot more comforting, because in the spring training, I didn't think they had that in them. And to be honest with you, and again, small sample size, don't go too crazy about it. Will Benson looks pretty good in center field. I'm thinking that might be his spot.
It might be. And
at least till TJ Friedel gets back.
Also factor in the fact that Stuart Fairchild is doing his darndest to make sure we have to do a tribute episode at the end of this season. It has been fun to watch this outfield. But before we get out of this segment, Jeff,
I love what he's done. But
yeah. I want to cover one more thing. I want to give a little bit of kudos to David Bell for something that he did on Sunday. I know, everybody buckle up, brace yourselves. I want to give kudos to David Bell for when he went to Justin Wilson, for sticking with Justin Wilson for a little bit. It was clear that Justin Wilson had rust, but Justin Wilson hadn't pitched in 6 days. I give David Bell a lot of credit for letting Justin Wilson work out the kinks a little bit to get him ready for the Seattle series. Likewise, tremendously smart move to get Alexis Diaz into this game. Diaz hadn't pitched in 5 days. It showed. It took him a minute to find the strike zone, walked to the first batter that he faced. It took him a minute to get the feel. You could tell he did not have command at all when he took the mound, when he came into the game. Smart moves by David Bell to get the rust off of these guys, to get ready for a Seattle team that, while their record doesn't reflect it, they are a lot better than they look on paper.
Yeah, this is going to be a much harder series. It's not really saying a whole lot, but definitely going to be a much harder series than what the Reds faced in Chicago. But there's been so many key developments over the weekend. We couldn't get to all of them. We'll probably break down a few more as the week goes along, because there were some interesting developments and things like that. But overall, you cannot understate it. Like, stop trying to tell me that it's just the White Sox, so we can't get too excited. I'm freaking excited because of the way that the Reds played this weekend. And there was a specific Red who showed us that a breakout is coming because Tyler Stephenson did a couple of things this weekend. We're ready to see that breakout, and it is so close to happening. We'll tell you about it next. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investment and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or you're just looking for extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They are the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. That's the #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. Again, that's yahoofinance.com. Make sure you join me as a Locked On Reds insider. Text the word insider to 513-597-0944. Revamp the program this year. We are focused on making you the Reds fan of your friends group. Everybody's going to be coming to you for Reds takes, analysis, and all that great stuff. Just text the word insider to 513-597-0944. Get a free 14-day trial. It's $4.99 a month after that. And also make sure you bookmark si.com/MLB/Reds for written content about your Cincinnati Reds from myself, from Steve, from James Rapine, from Caleb Sisk, from Adi Elmore, and Rick Uccino. A lot of great folks writing over there at si.com/MLB/Reds. All right, Steve, good weekend, too, for the backstop. Luke Maile had a couple of RBIs. And Tyler Stephenson did some things that made me super excited. And I know you kind of earmarked it and was just like, we ready.
Yeah, it's coming, Jeff. We saw his Oppo Taco, and that was kind of the beginning of it. What came after that? You can't look at the box score to really understand what's going on with Tyler Stephenson. You had to see it with your eyes, because every single ball that he put the bat on after that was absolutely blistered. He is seeing the ball well. Unfortunately, a lot of them went right at somebody in Chicago. But for me, absent that double that managed to get by a guy. But for me, how he looked in the batter's box, how the ball sounded coming off his bat. He barreled a ball at 107 miles an hour that was just short of being his second home run on the series. So he is making that turn. I mentioned to you last week that I felt like some of these guys may just not have been quite ready coming out of Goodyear. The timing didn't seem to be there. They weren't barreling up when they got the bat on the ball. They just weren't quite there. I'm starting to see guys turn the corner, especially with Tyler Stephenson. And not only offensively, he looked good behind the plate yesterday. There was some talk on the broadcast about how he has worked to be better at the framing and not be, I know you've termed it anti-framing. I'm not sure if that's the term we're going with or not, but not framing in such a way to help swing the umpire the other way. I think Tyler Stephenson's ready to break out. I just feel like he was right on the edge of it. If this had been a 4-game series, I think he'd absolutely murder the White Sox today. I'm hoping that carries over into the Seattle series.
Well, he's heard everybody that said we need a catcher. There's been so many people that have basically written him off and said that we're done, it's time to move on, which, by the way, if you're moving on, it's for Mr. Outside Hire. There is no catcher of the future currently in the Red system. But I really love what I saw from him. That homer that he had on Friday night was a monster, and honestly, he should have had a second homer. It's just he hit it to the deepest part of the ballpark for guaranteed rate. If this was at Great American, he'd have had a 2-homer game on Friday night. Like he's hit the ball so hard over the weekend. I looked this up on Baseball Savant. couple of about 4 or 5 days ago, whenever we talked about is there a catching controversy between him and Luke Maile, just by the way that the Reds are playing them 50-50. First of all, they've played Tyler Stephenson now in 11 games compared to 7 for Luke Maile. Actually, sorry, 12 games. I read that wrong. 12 games compared to 7. And they've got no, that's not right. Or I think that they've just got in. Anyway, the playing time thing wasn't 50-50 like I thought it was. But the big thing for me, we talked about this a couple of days ago, the average exit velocity was way below league average. Now, it's actually slightly above league average. That's how hard he's been hitting the ball recently.
Yeah, and as air quotes, disappointing as he's been this year, and I don't know that disappointing is the right word,
It's
but
too
a lot of
early
people,
for anybody to be
a lot of
disappointed.
people are unhappy with how he has performed. Listen,
Yeah.
as disappointed as some of you all are, his slash line right now is 250, 308, 417. The slugging's not quite there yet. It's coming, I'm telling you.
See
But
the on-base
250
percentage tick up, but yeah.
Yeah, you'll see both of those numbers tick up. So I'm okay with where he's at right now, early in the season, and I'm in firm belief that at the end of April we're going to revisit this conversation, and some of you people might owe Tyler an apology when we get to May 1st.
Yes. What we're saying is, if Stuart Fairchild continues his torrid start, which, by the way, 90 OPS plus so far, 90. So let's take a chill pill on that. But if he continues it, we'll write a song. If Tyler Stephenson breaks out, I want to see a song from somebody. I don't know who, maybe, somebody that actually writes better songs than we do. Real quick, before we get out of here, Reds are in Seattle starting tonight. We got late night Reds coming up Monday and Tuesday. Because of my weird schedule this summer, I'm actually going to be on the road for like every other late night Reds. I'm so pumped about these late night Reds games.
I love afternoon baseball in Hawaii, my friend. It's so exciting for me. I don't have to wake up at 6 a.m. I don't have to rush back from wherever I am to catch the start of the game. This is perfect. And we don't have to face old friend Luis Castillo. He went yesterday. We're missing him in this series.
So glad.
I mentioned earlier, Seattle Mariners are better than their record reflects. But this is potentially a series where the Reds could get out of there with another sweep. I expect them to win 2 of 3. They could steal all 3 games while they're out there in Washington.
I wouldn't expect it. I think if I'm putting an expectation on it, I do expect them to take 2 out of 3, just with the way that momentum feels like it's rolling right now. And then you also look at the fact that, in years past, this was the other thing about the Chicago series and how good the pitching was. In years past, whenever the Reds have a good pitching series, you cringe for the series after that because you're like, well, we got our good pitchers going in one series. That means that we won't have good pitchers in the next one. We got Montas, Green, and then Abbott's pitching in game 3.
And I totally forgot to drop this on you earlier, but the Reds scored 11 runs yesterday with 0 hits from Spencer Steer and 0 hits from Elly De La Cruz. The guys that have been driving this offense the entire season had 0 hits combined, and the Reds still scored 11 runs.
And that is how we're going to drop the mic on this show. Thanks so much, everybody, for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure that you're following us on your favorite podcast app, right here on YouTube as well. Click that bell to get notified whenever we've got new content for you, because we're going to be all with you all throughout the season. Coming up on the next Locked On Reds podcast, we mentioned Montas. Is he going to keep the momentum rolling? We are going to break down his performance in the first game in Seattle. Steve, what can people expect from you and me moving forward?
Well, we're breaking down what's going to be a stellar Montas start. I'm calling it right now. The momentum continues. We're going to break it down. We're going to bring all that information back right here to keep you locked on Reds every single day.
Pitched his Ashcraft off.
That's your best line ever.